Manchester United 2, West Ham United 1. A much improved performance from both a physical and a technical point of view in what I would class as United's first proper pre-season game so far this summer. Now, of course, it's still pre-season. There are tactical things we need to address, technical things and also physical areas where we can improve. But I think this was a much improved performance where we can actually learn quite a lot. Now, the first thing that we are going to talk about is Manchester United on-goal kicks, but don't worry, we are not going to be talking about what we normally discuss. Normally, we talk about the centre-back going into midfield and playing in this position and how it doesn't really help United in the first phase. And whilst we did still see this on the pitch, there was actually a positive side to it for a change. And you could see what Manchester United were trying to do. There was almost an explanation as to why Amorim usually does this, and it was a case of drawing West Ham on to United. So what United would do initially is move the ball out from the back in these deeper positions, trying to attract the West Ham players forward. So of course, as the ball goes short, West Ham are going to try in their moments to be aggressive. They're going to try and move forward to press a little bit higher up the pitch. What we saw in these moments, though, was that once Manchester United had drawn West Ham forward, suddenly United didn't want to play the ball short anymore, and this is when we would actually then go a little bit more direct. So it really felt that like the plan for Amorim was to draw the West Ham players out of position, and then after that, to go direct into the space that we have just created. Now, there was actually a few moments where Manchester United was sort of in multiple 1-versus-1s across the front line. You can see Højlund here, literally 1-versus-1 against the last defender, all from Manchester United having the ball in deep positions. And I really wanted to pick this point up and make it clear to you guys, because we've been so critical of this idea on goal kicks. I think in this game, in the first half, we sort of saw moments as to why we actually try and do this and how it could be effective. Bringing these players deep, dropping our wing-backs into deeper positions, drawing the opposition out to then try and find those spaces in behind. And with runners like Rasmus Højlund, physical players like Cunha who can get on the second ball, it kind of worked. I do just want to take one moment to interrupt the video really quick to ask you guys if you could please subscribe to the channel. Around 65% of people that watch these videos haven't yet subscribed. Last time I said this, you guys went and absolutely smashed the subscriber goal. I'd like to hit 70,000 subscribers before the start of the season if possible, and I need your help. So if you do like the videos and you do like the content, please do subscribe, because it really helps a lot. The next thing that I want to talk about is the importance of the personnel in the two wide centre-back positions. How many times last season did we sit here and talk about Manchester United being stale and stodgy on the ball in that horseshoe of doom where we couldn't really progress the ball forward? So we would have the ball with the wing-back on one side, we'd go to a centre-back and sort of work our way around the back, and then go back again, and then go back again, and then go back again. In this game, we saw something very different, though, and that was because of the personnel and the profiles of player that we had in the two wide centre-back positions. I am, of course, talking about Aiden Heaven and Lenny Yoro. And the reason why they were important for Manchester United in this game is because they are two players that want to take responsibility. And for me personally, players that will take responsibility are the most important players on the football pitch, because they have personality to the way that they play. They're not afraid of losing the ball, which means they attempt ball progression. And we certainly saw that from these two in this game. Now, particularly in the case of Heaven, it wasn't always perfect. He had a few technically raw or loose moments where the ball went out of play, but generally speaking, we could see that they were trying to be more progressive in situations like this, trying to move the ball forward into advanced areas. We could also see it on the other side of the pitch as well, trying to take risks on the ball, and this is really vital to Manchester United. And not only did they do this in deep positions, but also when the team was a little bit higher up the pitch as well. So let's say the wing-backs were further forward in these advanced positions, we're sort of trying to pin the opposition back in their defensive third. There were situations where the wide centre-backs could actually step forward and join the attacking unit, just like we can see from Lenny Yoro here. And I think we could tell that the system almost suddenly makes more sense when you've got better players playing those positions. Now, in this game, it wasn't just the two wider centre-backs that were looking to make those runs forward from deeper areas. In fact, it was actually pretty much the whole team, especially across the front line. In this match, we saw a lot of players making runs off of the ball into channels in behind the West Ham defence. Now, some of that was perhaps because West Ham didn't look there physically, they didn't really look ready, and we'll come back to that in a second, so they were perhaps at times a little bit easy to play against. But what we saw was a Manchester United team that from literally the first minute were looking to get in behind West Ham. Here's Rasmus Højlund 1 minute into the game, stretching in behind the defence, and actually he ends up hitting the post with a pretty good effort, to be fair to him. But he looked sharp. Højlund looked really sharp. But it wasn't just him that was going in behind. There were also moments where Dorgu, like this situation here, is incredibly high up the pitch. And that's really important for United. It's one thing having one runner in the middle, Rasmus Højlund, someone that can stretch your defence and get in behind. That's great. But you need it from multiple parts of the pitch. You need to see it from multiple areas. And we did. Sometimes it was Dorgu going in behind. Sometimes it was Cunha. Sometimes it was Højlund. Even Bruno Fernandes could make runs beyond the opposition defence. And that's what you need. All the best teams in Europe at the moment, yes, have players that come towards the ball. They look to get on the ball in these areas, like we know that Cunha loves to do, and they have lots of touches on the ball. That's great. But to actually create the space for these players to operate in, you have to have people going the other way and stretching the opposition defence. The only criticism I would have here is that at times, because we had so many runners, so many players quickly bursting in behind the defence, the team almost felt that they had to play the pass, particularly with those wide centre-backs also being expressive. Then you've got Cunha, who's a player who likes to move the ball forward. Bruno likes to move the ball forward. Kobbie likes to move the ball forward. Højlund is aggressive with his actions. There were times in the game where we were a bit too direct, a bit too quick to play that runner in behind. There are moments in the game where you need to slow it down. Ugarte was actually one of the better players at doing this, taking extra touches and looking after the ball. So I like it. It's exciting. There's players running in behind, but I think we still have to get that tempo management, going from slow to quick and then quick to slow, and choosing the right moment to do it. Last night, it felt very much that United almost took every single opportunity to move forward, which is fun, but not always the most effective. Now, the next thing I want to discuss is United's approach from a defensive point of view, and the reason why I want to talk about this is because since Amorim came into the club, I haven't really been too complimentary here. I think there's a lot of issues in the high press, and there were at times last night, there were moments where it was a little bit too easy to play through us, like the goal, for example. But I also think there were moments where we pressed well, but that's actually not the most important thing for me in this game. What I actually liked was the moments where United went from being settled, being kind of calm and relaxed behind the ball, and then being aggressive and forcing West Ham back. So we're talking about the mid-block, not necessarily high pressing the opposition goalkeeper, but when, let's say, West Ham have got the ball in a left centre-back position, and initially Manchester United are in a mid-block, which means you're not really applying pressure to the ball, you're just trying to reduce space in the middle of the pitch. So like you can see in this situation here, United aren't really active or engaged. However, what we did really well in this game was we chose our moments where we wanted to change that. So rather than just sitting in the block like we did for a lot of last season, where we struggled to get pressure on the ball and as a result sort of got dominated quite a lot, what we saw in this game instead was Manchester United actually taking the moments to then jump onto the West Ham team. Now, some of that will be because we had the matching system with West Ham. This was sort of 3-4-3 versus 3-4-3. So the matchups were quite natural, but I still think it was really good to see that Manchester United were looking to try and force the opposition back. So there were moments where the left wing back would have the ball, and last season I would say quite often we would sit off and let them have the ball there. But United took these moments to be aggressive. So Ahmad would squeeze a little bit higher and force the ball backwards. That was the cue for Bruno Fernandes to go forward, for Højlund to go forward, for Cunha. But importantly, also the central midfielders. There were lots of turnovers in the middle of the park where Kobbie Mainoo and Ugarte were scrapping it out and winning the ball back really, really effectively. I think Ugarte in particular was genuinely brilliant in this game. Absolutely brilliant with his ball winning. Being given that role where he was defending forward, not responsible for covering laterally a lot of space, not responsible for running back towards his goal a lot, but for stepping forward, being aggressive, trying to press. He's great at it. He is a good high pressing midfielder, and he was in this game. He picked his moments really well. I think his timing largely was excellent. I think it was spot on defensively, and it allowed him to step forward. And when you can win the ball back in these positions high up the pitch, the great thing is you're closer to the opposition goal. You know, if you sit in a deep block and you win the ball back over here, you've got miles to go to get to the goal, right? Whereas if you can nick it in the middle of the park and then burst forward, you're that much closer. And again, when you've got direct players on the pitch, you know, someone like Cunha, who immediately wants to come into that space, get on the ball and drive at the opposition, it gives you an excellent opportunity to take a moment where you're sitting behind the ball and turn it into an aggressive action, winning the ball back, and then looking to spring. And then again, we've got those runners off the ball. Dorgu, relentlessly running in behind down the left-hand side in this game. Højlund, again, sharp with his movements, looking a bit more active, really, than what he did for a lot of last season, looking to spin in behind. Ahmad could get forward as well, although he had a bit of a quiet game from wing-back, a little bit disappointing. But the point is, what United could do was take those passive defensive moments and then turn them into aggressive ones. And even if we couldn't necessarily win the ball back, the least we could do was actually force West Ham backwards. So we may not win the ball back in the middle of the park, but what we do when we start to match up man to man is we force West Ham to move the ball back. And if that then forces them into a long, aimless ball forward where we can win the header, then we're still getting possession. So I was really impressed with that side of the game. So yeah, all in all, I think this was a much better performance from Manchester United. I can't really recall the last time I watched United and physically felt that we looked a lot better than the opposition, particularly when playing against an English team. It's not something that we do very often, but in this game we did for the first 70 minutes. I think we were too good for West Ham, physically, but also technically. Of course, there were negatives about this performance as well, and a lot of those are things that we've spoken about in previous videos. Today's video is all about what we learned in this game, new things that we have seen, so I didn't want to focus on that stuff. So it's still not perfect for Manchester United. Far from it. Very, very far from it. But in terms of new things that we learned in this game, there was actually some really interesting points with what Manchester United were trying to do. Some of it working really well, some of it not quite, needing better player decisions. But all in all, I was impressed. I enjoyed it. I think it was a decent performance from Manchester United. I think it was a step in the right direction. And ultimately, that's what preseason is all about. The fitness levels will have increased. The players would have got used to the system just a little bit more. So I think it was pretty good. And obviously, if you can win as well, winning is a habit. So all in all, a good night for Manchester United, a good performance, a good result. So I am pretty happy. But were you guys? Were you guys happy with this performance? Were you happy with what you saw? Let me know in the comments down below. And also, whilst you're there, leave it a like on the video if you have enjoyed it. And also check out these two other videos that we produced recently as well. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys very much for watching. Hope you have enjoyed this video. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.